Hello again everyone, welcome back to another video. My name's Derailious, and today we're going to be going over the Hypixel server rules. Notably, there are quite a few things here that I want to talk about, because I feel like some of these rules are generally poorly written, and definitely way too expansive, meaning that they impact a lot of players, doing activities that any reasonable person would consider normal. This doesn't include stuff that very obviously should be banned. This is stuff that is pretty clear cut in pretty much any other game, but for some reason, Hypixel seems to want to take action about, or at least write rules about. I believe that these rules should be clarified in the future, and that they need some changes. So, without any further ado, let's get started. So starting off here, we are in the Hypixel server rules section of the Hypixel support page, so you can look at this, I'll have it linked down below. But starting off, we're going to scroll down a little bit because the first rules definitely make a lot of sense. They are related to rule breaking, server bugs, player safety, and account security, and even this first section related to behavior that is not allowed totally makes sense. However, we have two rules down here that I want to talk about. Game trading. Exchange of game content, items, currency, services, or accounts through external third-party platforms or unauthorized external game trading platforms. This is something that is not allowed, regardless of intent. This, to me, as I read it, states that you are not allowed to go to something like a Discord server and sell Skyblock items, sell Skyblock currency, things like that. Period. This is not an IRL trading ban specifically. IRL trading is already banned, and that's very clear in the Skyblock rules section of this forum support page. However, this is much more broad. This states that any items that you sell, period, are banned if you're doing it in a third-party manner. This means all servers that have any sort of game trading, item trading locations within them need to remove them based on these rules. I think this is kind of ridiculous. The latter part of this says, this extends to, but is not limited to, activities like organizing or participating in games of chance, including gambling or the establishment of casinos on the server. Now that's totally reasonable. The first part of this sentence, or first part of this rule, focuses entirely on the exchange of items or content or whatever, but the second part doesn't actually talk about that at all and focuses on gambling. I feel like this rule was either written incorrectly, like the first part was supposed to be a ban on gambling, and the second part obviously shows that, or the first part was supposed to be a much lighter ban, and the second part is just completely wrong. I don't know specifically what's going on with this rule, but it doesn't seem right, and it doesn't seem logical. The second part I want to talk about here is giveaways. Giveaways and advertisements of giveaways are not allowed in Hypixel. Please report anyone you see advertising a giveaway. If you participate in a giveaway, you will be at risk of receiving a punishment. Period. That's it. Do not make giveaways, do not participate in giveaways. That is the rule from Hypixel. I myself previously used to offer giveaways on my server. It wasn't like a private thing, you could just join the server and immediately join the giveaway. We'll not be able to do that any further, and will not be doing it at all. That initial segment was kind of the primer. Now we are on to the community content rules. And keep in mind, this is additional clarity on what is and isn't allowed when creating content on the server, extending our server rules, Skyblock rules, and the terms of service. And this applies for both housing, Skyblock, and everywhere else. So, let's continue. Gambling or depictions of gambling. This is something that was changed today. Matter of fact, it was changed an hour ago. Building or sharing content that simulates gambling mechanics, such as slot machines, roulette tables, or other casino games regardless of intent or whether real stakes are involved, are not allowed. Organizing or advertising any form of betting or gambling between players through any means is not allowed. I think this is generally reasonable. This is something that they changed and actually made a little bit better in terms of the rule, because previously it would imply that RNG types of games aren't allowed on the server, and they wanted to fix that, so good job to the admins on that one. Next up, we have giveaways and external incentives and rewards. Giving or promoting giveaways of any kind is not allowed. Offering in-game items, currency, or other rewards as incentives for joining or interacting with any external platform is also not allowed. This includes incentives offered on external platforms for engaging with Hypixel content. This includes organizing or advertising giveaways for in-game items, currency, or rewards, regardless of whether participation is free, requires interaction, or involves payment. Offering in-game rewards or incentives, i.e., coins, items, and services, in exchange for joining Discord servers, YouTube channels, social media pages, and other external platforms. This goes on to talk about additional features related to this giveaway ban, but this is a wide-reaching overall giveaway ban. Once again, if you do anything related to giveaways, don't do them anymore. They are completely and totally banned. So that's a big one right there. I don't know if I personally agree with this, but that is their rule that they're setting down. Next up, we have real-world events. Now, most of the stuff here is actually really logical and makes a lot of sense, except for you can't reference COVID or other real-life pandemics. Why? I understand not wanting players to be completely alarmist about things or to say things that are completely false about COVID or other pandemics, but I feel like completely banning the referencing of COVID is a little ridiculous. The other things here are totally logical, they make a lot of sense, but that specifically is a little much. You are not allowed to depict anything related to politics, by the way, which is pretty reasonable. Next up, we have adult themes and content, which I actually think is totally reasonable once again. In fact, I don't think they go far enough on this, but we also have copyrighted content. Creating builds that closely mimic characters, logos, or other designs from movies, TV shows, games, and books is not allowed. Creating builds that prominently feature real-world brand logos, slogans, or advertisement is not allowed. Avoid using in-game mechanics, like note blocks, to replicate songs or soundtracks that are copyrighted. You are not allowed to do that. So that's another thing right there. Now you may be thinking, well, Derailious, most of these sound pretty reasonable, maybe a little bit strict, but whatever. But now we get to the last segment here. Use or promotion of bots, alts, disallowed mods, scripts, or external services. The use of bots, alternate accounts, disallowed mods, scripts, or external services to manipulate gameplay is not allowed. This includes using automated software or scripts to interact with your house or game in any way. Now this wording is incredibly poor because automated software includes pretty much every single mod to ever be made. Now I understand what they may mean by this. They mean software that automates a part of the game for you. But they need to clarify that because that's not what automated software means. Those two words and those two sentences are entirely different. They need to clarify that if they want to make this an actual rule and make it make sense. Using multiple accounts or alts to artificially increase player counts. This is somewhat reasonable, although some of the things related to Skyblock doesn't really make sense with this. Like, are you not allowed to have multiple accounts on your island because that's artificially increasing player counts? I understand that this rule seems to be focused on housing, but if they want it to be a housing-specific rule, they need to say that. They need to say this rule is for housing only, because otherwise, it applies everywhere, as was stated at the top of this thread. And lastly, we have using third-party services or tools to gain an unfair advantage. Now, I don't think I really need to explain why I don't like this at all. Unfair advantage is not explained in the slightest. Third-party services or tools are also not explained in the slightest. Is me going to a bizarre handling website that allows me to see what items are being sold for what prices an unfair advantage? I'm gaining information a normal player wouldn't have. Is me going to a website that shows the account information of another player, whether that be their skills or something like that, being an unfair advantage? Is something like a mod that allows me to, see the dungeon secrets within a dungeon an unfair advantage? I don't know. There's nothing specific here at all. And I think this rule is probably the biggest one that needs to be changed in the immediate future, because it doesn't really clarify anything. If I go to a Discord server that has a bunch of information on it that you would have to access through the API, is that an unfair advantage? I don't know. It doesn't really say anything like that here. And it says something like disallowed mods and scripts and external services, but it doesn't explain what specifically about those mods would make them disallowed in any way, shape, or form. There needs to be further clarification here because a lot of these rules are not made with clarification in mind. And I feel like that's somewhat intentional. The admins want to keep their options open. They want to be able to ban somebody if they feel like they're doing something wrong, and they want to be able to point to a rule, but they don't want that rule to be so strict that the player could weasel out of it and say, well, you didn't get me on this technicality, so that's it. And I understand that. But I also think rules should mean something. And when you have rules that go so far, so wide, that a reasonable person can interpret them as being all mods are banned, or all giveaways are completely banned, or you're not allowed to trade anywhere but in-game, I think you're going a little bit too far. At least that's my opinion. For the last section here, we're going to go over the allowed modifications segment of their form, which basically shows that there are 4 types of mods that they consistently allow. Client performance improvement modifications, things like FPS boosters, sodium, Optifine, stuff like that. Aesthetic modifications, so these are things like, for example, a resource pack or things like that, or shaders, but they must not change the properties of blocks, so like make non-transparent blocks transparent, or allow the player to see around objects that they otherwise wouldn't be able to. There's cosmetic heads-up display modifications, so things that allow you to see armor and status effects, and there's brightness and gamma adjustment modifications. They do not provide a thorough list of disallowed modifications, and any mod that provides any significant advantage to players in any of their games, even if not in the specific game that you're playing, is against the rules. And if a modification does not clearly fit into any of the above categories, it should be assumed to be disallowed. This is not new stuff, but I think, considering some of the most recent changes to the rules and some of the most recent additions to the rules, this needs to be looked at a little bit more closely. There are a lot of mods in Skyblock that people utilize, and most of them do not fall under these 4 categories. They allow you to do a lot more. So, where's the limit? Hypixel's not explaining the limit, so where is it? So as a quick clarification here, they've stated here on the Hypixel forums that they've introduced new community content rules to ensure that player-created content on the server aligns with their community goals and overall server rules. They're giving players a 7-day grace period before stricter enforcement begins, so that means until March 3rd. They will be more lenient regarding content that doesn't fully comply with the clarified rules. They will still be providing an in-game message, by the way, for better visibility, but it doesn't mean that rule-breaking behavior is allowed during this period. They will continue enforcing rules against rule-breaking behavior, such as inappropriate builds and gambling houses. I think this is, A, not a long enough grace period, and B, I think they need to be more specific about the rules before they try to enforce them, because I think players are in a little bit of shock at the moment, and they need to be better about this, in my view. Now, fundamentally, I don't want to make this video to alarm people. I don't think that Hypixel is just deciding that all of these things are going to be completely banned. This is very likely just a situation in which they haven't specified the rules because they felt like they didn't need to, or they want to keep their options open. This can be seen through the fact that many players who were previously hosting giveaways are not in fact banned. Many players who were doing things like making copyrighted material on their islands are not in fact banned, and other similar things like that. However, I just wanted to open a discussion about rules and how specific they should be, because in my opinion, they should be more specific than this. Allowing players the ability to make mods for games, allowing players the ability to trade in third-party platforms as long as it's not IRL trading, things like that should be generally allowed. And I understand if Hypixel wants to crack down in some respects on things that they don't want the server to involve. However, it is my personal view that some of these rules go a little bit too far. And therefore, I would love to see Hypixel come out and say, we agree, we're going to be making some changes, look out for those changes. But that's something that needs to be happening, and I don't know if it will. So, that's generally my view on these rules. I'll have everything linked down below so you can check them out. I am just a messenger on this. I am not the person who made these rules. I don't agree with the vast majority of them, although some of the things here do obviously make a bit of sense. And if they want to ban things like giveaways, they are totally within their right to do so. That is not really my problem here. My problem is how specific they are being, and the answer is they're not really being specific at all. I would love to hear your thoughts down below about this and on other changes recently. Feel free to leave a comment. I love reading them, and I love looking into them. I'm not trying to get around any of these rules. I will not be doing any sort of giveaway of any sort in anything that I involve myself in, but if you want to join my Discord down below, feel free to do so. We've also had to remove the trading section of the Discord because I don't want to involve myself in that either if that is a banned activity. So, yeah. At the end of the day, my name's Derailious. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end, and look to the future, fellas. I'll see you then.